Hi guys, I'm Madison Mary and welcome back to my channel. So today I have my February wrap up and this is quite a crazy one. I'm going to have my stats up here right now because I was too lazy before I filmed this to actually calculate them because I had a long week. I had a biochemistry exam last night and fun times guys. So without further ado, let me start off. I think I'm gonna do from least favorite to favorite. Let's do that. You know what? I didn't plan that before I started this, but, but we're gonna do that. So first I'm gonna start off with a book that I did not rate, and that is just because I don't rate mangas. And this month I read I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. This was part of the Pages and Panel book club, which is hosted by Natalie over at Pages and Panels. I Want to Eat Your Pancreas sounds weird, but it's about a girl who has pancreatic cancer. I think it's pancreatic cancer, so just like a pancreatic illness. One of those. And the book starts off and you know that she's already died because the first page is, you know, her dead. But this book follows her making friends with this guy who is the only person who knows that she has this illness and that she is going to die and that she's on this timeline. And it's just such a sweet and cute novel, like watching their friendship develop and just seeing this girl that you know is going to die. And oh my god, there is a plot twist in here, and I was just like, no! And I also teared up in the middle of this too, like, but yeah, I absolutely adored this. It is a hunker of a manga, one of the longest ones I've read ever, but super enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend picking this up. I'm going to reiterate this. A 3-star book is not a bad book. It just means that it wasn't as good as I had hoped it to be. It was still a book that I enjoyed, thought it was solid, but there were just things missing from it. The book that I rated 3 out of 5 stars, which is my lowest rated read of the month, I listened to an audiobook, which I personally actually think was the problem, was I listened to an audiobook. And that is People Like Us, and it is by Dana Mill. But it's about a girl, her name is Kay. She goes to this all-girl private school, and on the night of their formal, they find a girl in the lake dead. And this girl's name is Jessica, and Jessica leaves her an email with a link, and when Kay clicks on this link, it goes to a revenge blog. And this revenge blog is actually set up as recipes, and as she completes each recipe, like from starter, entree, main, dessert, but if Kay does not complete each of these tasks, her secret will be revealed. And each of these tasks, once you start it, an oven timer starts, and you have 24 hours to complete the task, or else, you know, your secret's revealed. I really enjoyed this. I just thought that the characters were a little bit too one-dimensional for me. This has a complete and total Mean Girls vibe to it. Kay and her group of friends are like the top tier people of her school, and it's kind of the whole idea of how karma is a bitch and how it comes back to bite you. I was pleasantly surprised with the ending of this. I thought that we knew Kay's secret in the middle of the book and I was very disappointed. I was like, seriously, that's her secret? It's not that big of a deal. Then you get to the end of the book and you find out her actual secret, like, and it's messed up. Like, girl, she screwed up. Like, oh my god, I don't know how I would live with myself after what happened at all. Like, oh my god, it's so sad. I just felt like a lot of things were very glossed over and it wasn't as in depth as I would have loved it to be. It also felt like, and I mentioned this in my reading vlog, a roller coaster. I was constantly going up and down with the excitement, but not in a good way. Like, you know, I wanted to consistently go up and not be like, I'm on a freaking crappy kiddie roller coaster. No one wants that. No one wants a kiddie roller coaster. We want the real shit, okay? I want like the one that goes to the highest point and then you just scream on the way down. That's the kind of stuff I like. But no, it's not what I got from this. I will say, however, that we do have bi and lesbian representation in this. 3 out of 5 stars. I really can't ramble too much because I have like 11 books. I don't want to make 2 videos because that'd be annoying. The next book was 3.5 stars, and that is Spectacle by Jodie, Lynn, Zdrock. So this book is set in the 1800s and it's set in Paris. I really enjoyed that whole aspect of it. There are also times in the novel where there are French sentences and little quirky things that are very Parisian related, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Our main character, she starts to have visions when she visits the morgue, and when she sees these bodies of these girls who have been murdered, she has a vision of their death, but in reverse from the eyes of the killer. What I really liked was the whole idea of the morgue viewing. So in Paris, they have a morgue and every day new unclaimed bodies are put out there and people can come in and observe the bodies, and that was just really interesting and quite morbid, but I found that very enticing. I thought it was a really awesome aspect. I don't know if that's a real thing that they used to do. I'd have to do some research to see, but I thought that was really awesome. The biggest problem I had with this was that the mystery lagged. Our main character, she didn't want to be in the mystery. She didn't want to find out what was really happening. And she didn't want to have these visions. She didn't want to be the hero of this book. And that's fine, like I don't mind that, but I went into this thinking that it was more of a mystery-based book, and that's just not what I got. Instead, we got a book talking about these special people called ɪᴛᴜɪ�ᴛᴇʀ, and these are people who, around 20 years ago, were part of a doctor's experiment in which he performed blood transfusions, and when he did these blood transfusions, the people who participated in it would get like a specific power that had to do with their own personality and strengths and weaknesses. There's some people who can tell if someone is lying, some people who have amazing hearing, people who can cure illnesses. The only thing is with each of these, that comes at a cost, so that the guy who can tell if someone is telling the truth or lying, he is starting to slowly lose his vision. The guy who can take away illnesses ends up taking the illnesses onto himself. This whole thing, and as you go along, you find that, oh my god, her name's Natalie. And as you go along, you see that Natalie's visions of getting these memories from the killer's perspective start impacting her own memories, and she starts losing chunks of her own time. And that's really interesting, and you kind of see how that progresses, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. But as a mystery book, it just did not live up to the expectations that I was hoping for, and that's the reason why I gave it 3.5 stars. I'm gonna start with this one because this was almost not a 4-star book. Okay, so the next book I'm gonna talk to you guys about is All of This Is True, and this is by, I'm not saying that name, but you guys can have a little look-see. I listened to an audiobook. I finished it in one sitting. It was so amazing. I adored this book. This is presented in 4 different methods. So it is presented with 2 of the characters in interview form, 1 of the characters in diary format, and 1 of the characters in an excerpt of a book. It is about these 3 girls who are obsessed with this author, and when they finally get to meet Fatima and become friends with her, Fatima ends up writing a book based off of their lives and the truth of the guy in the group. His name is Jonah. Because of Fatima's publication, Jonah was attacked and is now in a coma. And so you're kind of finding out how these girls became friends with Fatima and how this whole thing happened and why Jonah ended up in a coma and why these 3 girls now hate each other. And it's just, I really enjoyed it. I love the formatting of it. You know, it says what happens next will shock you. I was never shocked in this book. Not once was I shocked, and because of that I was like, oh, I could not give it 5 stars. I love this book to death. I think it's such a quality book. It's just not as much of a mystery as I would have enjoyed, and nothing shocked me. I called the plot twist from the beginning, and that kind of sucked. I was really sad, but otherwise I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really awesome. So let's talk about Little Monsters by Cara Thomas. I adore Cara Thomas so much. I listened to the Cheerleaders by her earlier, actually last year, and I adored it. And people said Little Monsters was even better, and wow, I wouldn't say it was better than the Cheerleaders. I'd probably put it on par with the Cheerleaders, but it's such a different take on the way that she does her mysteries. And the audiobook narrator for this is Phoebe Stroll, and oh my god, I love Phoebe Stroll's narration. She is my favorite audiobook narrator through and through, and she always does Cara Thomas's books, so that's a little recommendation for you guys. So Little Monsters, we follow Casey, and she is new to this town, has moved in with her father and his family. Her 2 new best friends are Bailey and Jade, and they always try and get her to go out with her, and then, you know, they want to do this whole seance thing one night, and the day after the seance, Bailey goes missing, and Casey ends up being one of the prime suspects in her best friend's disappearance. Casey actually is one of the take charge kind of characters who wants to be able to figure out this mystery because she wants to clear her own name, which I really enjoyed. I love when a character is very, you know, forward about that. I was very shocked behind who the killer was and the whole conspiracy. Like, there's a conspiracy theory in this book. It was so messed up. It was really messed up, like the whole premise of it. I was like, oh my god. I really did enjoy it. I just found Casey to not be a very reliable narrator and not someone, which is not a problem, but the fact that you couldn't really rely on her, she was very unrelatable, and I just didn't find myself too enveloped in her story. and I felt a certain disconnect from her because she was always saying how evil she was and that she wasn't a good person, and it just got to the point where it was quite annoying at times. I did think that there was a great build-up of tension in this book, and you do get excerpts from Bailey's diary leading up to the night of the seance and kind of what happened, and wow, that was amazing. I loved the diary entries. They gave such a great insight into what was actually going on. It's just a very interesting look in the psychological mind of these teenage girls, and it's also about the power of influence over people, and it's just pretty messed up. It's pretty messed up, guys. I don't know what else to tell you. Next, I'm gonna talk to you guys about Dark of the West, and this is by Joanna Hathaway. I was so pleasantly surprised by this, even though it was not the book that I was expecting it to be. For some reason, I went into Dark of the West expecting it to be a fantasy. It's not at all. I don't know why I thought it was, but I did, and it was not a fantasy at all, but I really enjoyed it. I was, like I said, really pleasantly surprised. So Dark of the West follows Aurelia and Ethan. Aurelia is the daughter of a queen, and in this northern kingdom, it's split up into sections, and there are all different kings and queens in the northern faction. And then we have a slight other area which has recently been kind of put together, and Ethan's father, who is a commander in general, is now controlling that area. And then there is the south, in which they're kind of like the rebellion area. And this book is called like a World War II European era book, and I definitely get those vibes from it. But Ethan, his mother is assassinated, and as a result he is now helping his father find out who killed his mother, and they believe that the killer is the Queen of Eternia, who is Aurelia's mother. So Ethan goes undercover there and tries to get the secrets out of Aurelia, and it's kind of seeing them become friends and watching their relationship grow. And I adored it. The reason why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars is because it's not a typical read for me, and I did find myself getting lost in the beginning a lot because I would just get confused as to which character was which and who was who and where they were and what was going on. There was a lot of political jargon and a lot of talks about diplomacy, and I just found myself getting very lost in it. But that's just a me thing. It's like there are definitely people out there who are more interested in that kind of stuff, and they would definitely have a different reception of it. But because I went into it not expecting that, I was very taken aback by it, and I found myself having to reread certain things and just really make sure I understood what was going on. But I will say there is a prologue to this, and the prologue's actually an epilogue, if that makes sense. And so when I finished the book, I went back to the prologue and read it, and oh my god, it ripped out my heart and like threw it on the ground and stepped on it and then put it in a garbage truck to roll down a hill. I don't know. It ruined me. It was so depressing. I was so sad. I was like, Joanna, why would you do this? And I need to know like how it ends up where it does end up. I'm so, yeah, need the next book. Need the next book really bad. Okay, let's talk about Moxie. So I read Moxie because it's coming out as a Netflix movie this summer, and I was like, you know what, I've been wanting to read this, so I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon now and read it before the movie comes out. I really enjoyed Moxie, gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I can definitely see that there would be some people who would easily give this a 5 out of 5 star, but my issue with it was the writing was very juvenile, and there were certain things that just didn't seem as believable to me, like guys randomly shouting out during class, make me a sandwich. I get the point that was trying to be put across, but there were times where it did felt a little bit forced. I adored Viv, and I adored seeing her start up Moxie and following in her mother's Riot Girl days. As the book goes on, she gathers confidence and she becomes more and more feminist. But in the beginning, she was a little bit frustrating because she lacked so much confidence. And that's not a bad thing, but it was to the extent where she'd be like, oh, it would be so much better if this girl made a Moxie, or this girl should be the figure of Moxie. No one would ever believe it's me, I'm not right. And I would just sit there and I'd be like, Viv, give yourself credit. That was a little frustrating. But I think my favorite thing in this was the talk about school uniforms, and I feel like people don't really talk about it as much anymore, but it's still such a prominent thing. And this talks about the whole idea of there being girls with wearing spaghetti straps who were called out from class for dress code violation, and that whole talk really got to me, and I loved that aspect of it. I thought that was really well done. And just the whole idea of Moxie bringing together all these different girls, it does show POC representations. The one thing I did feel was missing was sexuality representation wasn't really in there, but Yeah, you win some, you lose some. But 4 out of 5 stars, really loved it. So next I'm gonna talk to you guys about You Can Keep a Secret by Karen M. McMannus, my new auto-buy author. Not necessarily because of this, but because of One of Us Is Lying. Really, really loved that. Gave that one 5 out of 5 stars. This was a 4 out of 5 stars. As much as I adored this book, there was, I don't know, I just didn't connect with it as much as I did One of Us Is Lying. So we follow Ellery and her brother Ezra, who have just moved back to the town that their mother grew up in because she is in rehab and they're finishing out their senior year. And we also follow Malcolm. So we have Ellery's perspective from the twins, and then we have Malcolm, who is the stepson of one of the more prestigious families in town. And his brother was accused years ago of murdering his ex-girlfriend. So this town is riddled with their homecoming queens being murdered. So on the night of homecoming, Ellery and Ezra, their mother's twin, was murdered. Years ago, the other homecoming queen was murdered, who was Malcolm's brother's girlfriend. Present day, we have Ellery returning to town and the homecoming court is being threatened once again. And one of the girls ends up going missing from the homecoming court. And questions start to arise again, whether or not Malcolm's brother is responsible because he's back in town, if there's a larger conspiracy here. I really did enjoy it. I thought it was a really solid book. I loved seeing the sibling relationship. I loved watching Ellery and Malcolm kind of develop their friendship and then their romance. I did not think that the romance detracted from this in any way. In fact, in some points I felt that it actually added to the story, and it was just a very interesting book. Karen McMannus leaves a lot of clues throughout the book, and I feel like if I were to read this a second time around, I would actually give it a higher rating. And I know that doesn't happen with a lot of books, but this is definitely one that I would consider rereading, and then I would end up loving it more because I would be able to see all the hints that she had left behind that lead up to the big reveal. That was one thing that led me to give this a lower star rating, was the reveal felt very rushed. This book is a small town secret book, and I really did enjoy that, so I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So the next book I gave 4 out of 5 stars is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. For you guys to know what Six of Crows is about, it's about a gang of misfits who go on a heist to an ice kingdom, and it's supposed to be an impossible heist. I really enjoyed this, but my thing is, this is the 3rd time I have tried to read this and I finally got through it. I feel like every single time I read this, I got to like page 300 and then I just stopped. I don't know why, I just could never really get into it from the beginning, and that's a big reason why there was no way I could ever give this 5 out of 5 stars. I really did enjoy it. I love being back in this world. The 광ᴑᴜverse is one that I absolutely just adore, but I just did not find myself as invested as I would have liked. I did really love the characters, and this book led me to actually realize that I do like Mathieu, because originally I was like, Mathieu is okay, but now I'm like, Mathieu is awesome. And I adore ᴇᴍᴜᴜ. I understand people don't like him, but no, I adore him. I loved his whole grey morality and his whole self-servingness. Like, that is my ish. Are you kidding me? Loved him. But yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. Not as great as I would have hoped. Following up from that, I did read Crooked Kingdom and I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I love this. It was like so close to being a 5-star book, but it just, I don't know, there was just something missing from this that makes me give books 5 out of 5 stars. I adore this one so much more than Six of Crows. I finished Six of Crows and just knew I had to pick this up right away, and I did. And I sped through this. It was, I gobbled this book up. It was ridiculous, and it constantly just like, oh, I love Kaz. He reminds me so much of Selena from Throne of Glass, in the fact that he creates his elaborate plans, but he doesn't tell you, and you don't learn that all these things that happen and things you're like, what? No, they're things that he plans. He meant for these things to happen, and you sit there and you're like, boy, like he is thinking 17 steps ahead. It's pretty freaking impressive, and I adored that. Nina in this bothered me a little bit just because I was so frustrated with the state that her character was in, and then seeing her develop throughout this book makes me once again so excited to see where she goes from here in King of Scars. I'm so pumped, and I just thought that it was really well rounded, and I did enjoy the ending. It made me really sad. I was left very sad at the end of this because it ended. I was sad when it ended because it ended. I'm really, really glad I finally got to give this duology a shot and finished it, because it is definitely a quality duology. The next book, and the second to last book that I give 4.5 stars, is The Cabin. The Cabin by Natasha Preston. Okay, so this is the thing with The Cabin. It's marketed as a mystery thriller, and it's not entirely. It's more of a mystery, definitely not a thriller, but I adored it because there is a romance in here that I am obsessed with. I am obsessed with the romance in this. Kenzie and Blake, oh my god, I was listening to this and the entire time I was just like, oh my god, I love him so much, I love Blake. And I was like, Blake, love heart, like love Blake so much. He is the perfect bad boy. He is like your stereotypical YA bad boy, and I just ate that crap up. I was like, give me more. 4.5 stars, took off half a star because the ending was a complete and utter cop-out. Such a cop-out ending. I'm so pissed off. It ended and I sat there and I was just like, I was so mad at how this ended. I was like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Oh my god, I was so, like, if I had been physically reading this, I listened to an audiobook, which I highly recommend because it's British. I would have thrown this book across the room if I'd been physically reading it, because no, what is that ending, Natasha Preston? Not cool, not cool, not cool. But no, I really did love this. So Kenzie and her friends plan to spend a week of vacation at one of their friends' cabins, and when they go down there, they have a really fun night. The first night there, they get really plastered and drunk, and then when they wake up in the morning, the couple of their group, Courtney and Josh, have been brutally murdered and lie dead, stabbed multiple times in the kitchen. And so that they call the cops, and the cops say that it has to be someone in the friend group who killed them because there was no signs of forced entry and everything was locked from the inside. So, interesting. And you're kind of following that. And as much as I did love it, there were times when I got very frustrated with Kenzie because she was wearing rose-colored glasses the entire time. She was, her want to find out what really happened comes from a place of she just didn't believe it could be her friends. And even when she found things out, she was like, but still they would never do it. Come on now, you gotta start being a little bit skeptical of your friends. So that was my main issue. Now, my one 5 out of 5 star book, which if you have listened, read, watched, if you have watched my recent reading vlog, I read Nevernight and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I tabbed this boy and I adored it to the moon and back 17 times. Oh my god, I'm so freaking glad I picked this book up. I did a buddy read of this with Katie over at Katie's Book Nook, and I'm just so glad I picked this up. It was so phenomenal. I adored everything about it. And if you want to hear my thoughts of me raving about this, you can watch my reading vlog, because I don't know anything that I could say here that I didn't already say. I am just obsessed with this series. I'm obsessed with Mia and her story. I will say the beginning, it's a little bit slow, but once she gets to the Red Church, it really picks up and it becomes such a dark book. And learning about Mia's backstory and her darkened powers and just the whole society of assassins that there is and this conspiracy that's underlying everything, I loved it. I just thought it was so amazing, and the footnotes were hilarious, and just 5 out of 5 stars. And this is becoming a web series with Piera. Like, oh my god, I'm so freaking excited. Like, amazing. If you have been hesitating reading this, pick it up, because I slept on this and I regret it, so you too will regret sleeping on this. Just saying. Hint hint. Whitney. What? But yeah, those are all the books that I read this month. And if you guys read any of these too, let me know down below. Also, please click the like button if you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more of me, please subscribe to my channel. And until next time, thanks a bunch, guys. Bye!